It's gonna hit. All right. So today I'm going to go over how you can benefit from investing in the market, in the stock market specifically. And this was a way that I was introduced to when I was really young, probably I would say in high school, but then really took it into consideration more in college because that's when I started a business for myself. And started making some money and didn't know what to do with my money. And I also had debt at the same time. And so I was a little bit worried that like I couldn't invest. I kept hearing about investing, but then thought, can I actually invest even though I have like student loans and I have credit card debt and all of these things, adding up. And what I did find out was that I definitely could invest. There were no rules, about whether you could be in the market or not. And so it was something that I discovered. And when I was probably like 15 or 16, had heard about this concept of interest, which I'm going to get into in a course that I'm going to be offering, where I talk about compounding and compound interest. But it was something that I had discovered and realized that I could use this as a way to make money off of my money. And when I heard that concept, and then I realized you can do that through investing in something like the stock market, my mind just kind of blew up. I was like, what? You can, just put your money in something like an investment, even like a savings account. This is how a lot of people start, is through a high yield savings account. They'll put their money in that and then they'll make like 3 to 5% off of their money just sitting there. And so when I first heard this, my story goes like, I sat down and thought, okay, how much money do I need to live off of that percentage? Like, could I have built up an account where it would be like 500,000 or something like that and live off of this interest? And I kept punching in numbers and doing the math and eventually calculated out my number would be $1 million. That would be my ultimate goal. My number would be $1 million. I thought if I hit that, and then I was making, I think at the time interest rates were way higher too in savings accounts, like 6 to 7%. It even got up to 11% at some point. Like if I looked at time frames, maybe the 70s, 80s, 90s, it goes up and down. But right now, most banks will only offer you like 0.5%, if that, in your savings account. And you can do things with like CDs and that sort of thing with banks. But unless you find a bank that does a high yield savings account, then you're just going to be trapped in this kind of place where your money is just sitting there. And that always bugs me. If I talk to someone and I hear, that they have their money sitting, and it could be that they're scared, like maybe they've built up this account and they're scared to do anything with it. Either it could be they don't know what to do. They've never gotten any tools, or it could be that they just have a fear of the market because they're always hearing, the news, and the news is crazy. It's always, the market's gonna drop tomorrow. So the reason that I wanted to do this particular video was to talk about, introduce you to the stock market, show you what I found out that actually gave me more confidence in investing in it, and then also go through some of the benefits to investing in the market, as well as what I use, what I personally love to use, and what I'm going to teach in a course specifically. So I'm going to share my screen and show you, let's see if I can get there, make sure you can see it. Yahoo Finance. I'm an old school person. I love Yahoo. People laugh at me over it, but I don't care. I love Yahoo Finance. It's an app you can download on your phone. I highly recommend downloading it because I love the interface of it. They let you have a watch list. So up here at the top, there's these tabs. You can have watch lists. You can have your own portfolios in there. And this, when I say portfolio, it's not like you need to plug in what you are investing in. You could set up a mock portfolio in there, with just things in there that you're like interested in or hearing about. You can search for any kind of like ticker symbols up here in the search bar. It's very easy. And then I also just love that they right immediately show some of the markets. So the stock market is this representation of companies that are out there, like a lot of people know Apple and all these different types of companies, Microsoft. And the reason that you would want to invest in something like that is because you can piggyback off of that company's hard work. So you yourself could like try to build a business and make a lot of money from it, and then earn money from that. But you can also, if you have a business yourself, let's say, or you're working right now and you have some extra income coming in, and maybe you're too busy to like start a business for yourself or something, you could take your extra earnings and place it in a company. Sometimes people will do that with a company they believe in, or just a company that they see is doing really well. And so that's what you can do with the stock market. It's a place where you can, buy kind of like a holding in a company, a representation, a piece of the company, and piggyback off of their hard work. So if they're doing really well, then you're gonna benefit off of that just by having your money sit there and give them some money so that they can invest it in more things. I mean, this is what you would do if you had your own business, is you would grow that business with the extra earnings. That would be a way to improve upon your own business, and that's what businesses do. So this is what I love about Yahoo Finance. It shows these markets here. And the one that I found out about personally that I love and I tell people to try to start watching and get interested in is the S&P 500. And that is it's a representation of the 500 companies in the US that are doing really well. Okay, so if you go to Yahoo Finance or you download the app, you can click on S&P 500 on that little link, and you can scroll down. And this is what I always tell people to try to dive into getting used to, because it's a little bit like learning to surf. If you like, to do something that requires your attention and your awareness, if you're going to learn something like surfing, I say this because it's kind of like waves. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. And if you're good at surfing, or you get good at surfing, to get good at surfing, you need to be out in the ocean. You need to be sitting there, on your surfboard and looking at the waves and feeling the waves coming in, and then the waves, going out. So if you are able to start looking at the market, and what I do just as a habit, daily, I'll pull up Yahoo Finance on my phone. I'll click on the S&P 500 right away, and I'll see what the market's up to. Is it up today? Is it down today? And I do this as like a gentle observer, right? So like if you're good at meditation, you can, look at this. And mindset is a big thing. And I'm going to cover that in the course too, because you definitely need to be introduced to, ways to mitigate fear and all the things that come up, around investing. And I would say one of the ways is to start just by looking at what the market is doing. And you can do that weekly if you want, or you can do it daily if you want. I just have the habit of doing it now, and it's a quick and easy check-in for me, and it's actually something I get curious about because I like to see where it's at. So if you're going to go into the actual chart, you want to look at the different day time frames. So there's the 1 day that will automatically pop up, and that's great for looking at, oh, this is where the market is today. It, like right now, it's up today. It's shooting up today. So that's great. Immediately get like a woo feeling, right? This is where like the emotions come in and you're like, yeah. Or like if it's showing red and going down, you're like, oh, okay. That's so great. But then you can pan out, right, and look at more time frame. And I want to get to the 5-year and the max on the chart to show you, because this is why it gave me confidence about the market. So I'm going to show you the 5-year, and you can see over this last 5 years that the market has been up, quite a bit. It's gone up quite a bit. So if you look at the max on the chart, this is how much it's gone up. So it's just showing from December of 84. So like if you were in it, or if your parents got you in it when you were a kid, then you're doing really well right now. If your parents just put in, like 10,000 for you, or some amount, and just let it run. And that's what I'm going to get into about compounding in the course. If you just let that money multiply over itself and the interest continue to be invested, then you would most likely, I would say you probably would be over 300,000 for sure. There is a compounding calculator also that I'm going to show you in this actual video, because the 3 things that you need to have in order to invest are going to be some kind of app like this, Yahoo Finance. You can also use something like CNBC. So whatever you dig as like an app, you can definitely use. I would say also you need to have a brokerage account, and they all have their own apps. So I like Vanguard. My husband uses Fidelity. My family also has Charles Schwab. Fidelity actually has, in my opinion, probably the easiest entry point if you're new, because for some of the funds, for some reason, there's no minimum amount. And so that can also be a barrier for people that want to get in, is, I have to save up, $1,000, or I have to save up $3,000 to get in. So Fidelity, I believe, still has, because I've been helping some people getting in, it has that capability. So you can get into, say, an S&P 500 index fund, something like that, and you won't need to have saved up, a ton of money. So you will need that as well, some kind of brokerage account. You can also use these apps like Robinhood, Interactive Brokers. Now, those kinds of apps, those are trading platforms. And I would say trading is going to come, later for anybody who's new to getting in and into investing. A lot of people, they'll hear from their friends like, oh, I'm trading this, I'm trading that, and then they'll get into, and their friends will show them how. But for me, I think, trading is more like gambling. And unless you actually have tools and you know what you're doing, I was trained in trading later in my, in my whole investing game. And so I know what I'm doing there. But if you're new to it, it can be very scary, very intimidating, and very costly, actually. There's a lot of fees associated with every time you trade in and trade out. depending on the actual trading platform. Some of them have lower fees. So something like that is okay, but I think it's also limited in terms of what you can invest in. And so if you want to get into something like an S&P 500 index fund, you would need a brokerage account. But if you're going to be trading, then you can use one of those apps. And trading would be like buying an Apple stock, or Tesla, or, Microsoft, something like that. Buying pieces of the companies individually. That's usually what you can do with those apps. I believe you can also do ETFs, and ETFs are a lot like the index funds. So that all, again, that's all details that I'm going to hold off on getting into for now. This is just to kind of give you an idea of what you can do, with your money to help it grow. And this chart is the thing that I want you to see, so that you kind of get that first off feeling. It's like if you were to walk up to the ocean and take a look at it, and you're like, wow, those are waves. Those are some waves, So like if you bring this down to like some shorter time frames, you're going to see that choppiness, so like this is the 1 month. And if you were to look at this and you just see this red here, you could definitely get scared and be like, oh, the market's it's just bad. It's bad. Stay away. Now that's just over a month of time. The market's gone down. Over 6 months, it's generally gone up. So there are some trading tools that you can use to draw some lines too. So you can see from this point where it starts here, you can draw a line over to this point here, and that's like a upward trend in general. And then year to date, this is still some choppiness, but it's starting to kind of even out a little bit. And over a year, and then 5 years, and then the max. It really does even out a lot more. You can see some of these big dips in here, and this is something that I want to address right off the bat and have you take a look at for, the time frame. So if you hover, this is also the nice thing, and I think you can do this on your phone with Yahoo Finance. You can put your finger on the chart and move it back and forth, and you can actually see where the price is on a particular day. So if you look at this back here in September through December, even early, this was 2008, 2009, this dip right here. If you're older like me, then you've been through that. You remember that time. And yeah, that was pretty much like crazy times back then. I remember I had my business back then, and we had a balloon and helium company. We were delivering to like home builders and car dealers, and pretty much all of them started to tank. Like all the home builders were pulling back, not building houses. The economy just kind of took a dump. And so it was a lot of fear in the market. And you can see that also by these little, the charts below here. These bars represent volume in the market. So as you can see, there was a lot of trading volume during that time. All right. So that is also means it's a time of volatility. People are in fear. They're trading in and out. And so what did I do during that time? Okay, because I started investing actually back in college. I invested like, let's see, 99, probably 98, 99, somewhere in here. And the market started to kind of come down for a while, but I kept putting money in consistently. This is what I'm going to teach in the course. It's like how to automate, put money in consistently, and just keep your money rolling and compounding. So the market kind of came down. Then it started to kind of show some hope. It started to kind of come up. And then all of a sudden it just took a dump. Okay. And I remember during this time, because my stepdad was the one that introduced me to investing. And he told me, if you get in, just get into something like an S&P 500 index fund. It's a big representation of companies. So it's like if one company goes down, the other companies are going to still do okay. Well, during this time here, many companies were going down. Many companies were struggling. Some weren't, though. Okay. So, like, some, like, instead of us delivering to home builders, we started delivering to apartment communities because people couldn't afford a home. And that meant they were going to go to rent apartments instead. So, things pivoted, things shifted. Some companies did well, some companies like almost went out of business or did. And so that's the beauty in something like an index fund, is that if one thing goes down, all of the others can kind of help and carry it along. And so I remember asking my stepdad during this time, you know, what are you doing with the market? And even him, like to me, he's the strongest person with this, because he always told me, don't trade out, just leave your money, sit it in there and let it be, because you cannot time the market. It's too hard to try to figure out when to get back in. You're not going to know until the market is kind of fully turning around, and then you're going to get in, and then actually you're going to kind of shoot yourself in the foot. You're going to shoot yourself in the foot because you're going to lose out if you end up always buying high. Okay? So if you think about it, when do you actually make money, with investing? And that's if you're keen enough to buy low and sell high, right? So what he told me was, are you making any extra money right now? And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, we pivoted, who we were delivering to. We started delivering to these other companies. So we're doing well. We learned how to pivot and make that happen. And I said, yeah, we have money still flowing in. And he said, I would double down right now. I would actually be putting in more. If you have extra, start putting in more, because you're going to get it at a discount. You're getting in the market at a discount. So it took everything in me to be like, right, sure, because when you see the market coming down like this and your fund that you've been holding just got cut in half. I mean, like, you have, maybe at that time I probably had saved up like 500,000, and to see that go just like completely in half, you, at that point, you're like, really, like, buy more. So hard to do. You're like, I don't know if I can do this. And yeah, and I took his advice just like I did at the very beginning, and I just started, I increased what I was investing. So this is another thing that I show in the course, is like, start where you can and then start increasing the percentage. And the more that you make, if you say make a little more income from your job, try to treat that just as like you didn't make any extra money. Just try to treat it as something where you're just going to put that in your fund and increase what you're investing in right away, because time is on your side with the market. This is what I want you to see with the chart, is that if you allow this money from '08 that I put in, that extra money, to sit and compound upon itself over time, we go from a price of 735 up to, some of these high points are in the 4,000s. We're in the 4,000s right now. That's hundreds of a percent, right, to make in the market. So that money just compounded over time. And that, to me, is the third thing that I love for people to have. So you have your Yahoo Finance app or some kind of app, your brokerage account, and then a way to start doing these calculations for yourself. And I always show people this app. It's compound interest app. Actually, it's just a website. It's investor.gov. So if you go to investor.gov/financial-tools-calculators, and I think on their website, it's pretty easy to find. I think you just go into like this tab, financial tools and calculators. And then, yeah, it's right here, compound interest calculator. So that would be the third thing that I would say to bookmark, or have and be looking at every once in a while for yourself, because it's actually really inspiring. And I'm going to teach this in more detail in the course, but if you take advantage of this calculator, you can see how quickly your money will grow depending on how much you're putting in. And so that can also be a way to inspire you to say, okay, I'm only putting in 20 a month right now. Okay, so like let's start just show you real quick, $1,000 maybe as an initial investment, and say you're just doing $20 a month. And let's say you're gonna let this sit for 20 years, okay, over time. This number can be changed depending on your age. So if you're younger, you have more time, to invest. But if you're older, you may have less time. So I'm just going to do like a 20-year, time frame. Now, the S&P 500, this is one of the benefits to being in it, like say an index fund. You saw how that chart goes up over time. Usually the average is 10% a year for the S&P 500, like an S&P 500 index fund, if you were to get into one. That is the average, 10% a year. It will go up some years, and as you saw in 2008 and 9, it will go down some years, and it will go down bad some years. But as you saw, that 08-09 dip was what? 1 to 2 years of time. Okay, and actually it went down in 08 and started climbing back up in 09. Literally 1 year, it was a bad year. And then it started recovering, okay, right away. So I'm going to put in, to be conservative, 8%, okay, on this. But know that 10%, if you were going to play with this compound interest calculator, you could put in 10%. And then we leave it at, I don't usually worry about an interest rate variance. If you really are nerding out on this, you can do that, but I don't. And then the compound frequency is just annually. And then you just hit calculate. And you can see if you do $20 a month over 20 years, you'll have $15,000. Okay. And that $20 is nothing. That's so easy to contribute per month. Okay. But like, let's say, 20 years from now, you're, getting older, you're going through some kind of change in life, or something's happened medically or whatever, you would have this bit of money here, to help you out, to cushion you, right? To help you if you needed it. And so this was my goal. This is what made it really personal for me, was that I had that idea of, someday I want to just live off my money and I just want it to grow, and I just want to live off of it. I don't want to feel the pressure. I was watching my parents work, and slave away. My dad was an engineer. My mom worked at department stores, and they were sick all of the time, couldn't take time off. We couldn't go play and do things, never traveled. And I saw them just slaving away, and it just got to me. And I was like, I don't want to do that. That's not how I want to live my life. So this is where the calculating started coming in for me. And I tell people, even if they don't like running numbers, please just play with this calculator. It's so easy to look at. You can do it manually, but it's so much harder to do. But when you start playing with the numbers and you change things, like let's say you got comfortable with investing and you're like, okay, I'm going to up it to $250 a month. And then you hit calculate. There's a much bigger chunk of money that you've saved in 20 years. Now, the longer the time frame you have is also going to impact this. So let's say you have 30 years of time to invest, then you've bumped it up to 350,000. Okay. So you see where you can play with this and see like, and what I also love doing with people is asking them these questions, like really deep questions for themselves, to have them start thinking about what kind of life do you actually want and when. Like if you're working hard now, you're making good money now. This is what happened for me with my business. Was early on in my 20s, I started this balloon and helium company, and we were making thousands of dollars, and it just kept multiplying and growing. And I thought to myself, like, yeah, this is great, but I'm working 7 days a week, weekends, early weekends, getting up at 3 a.m., really tired on the weekends, going on vacations here and there, which was fun, but I was working really hard. And that was why I was making really good money, because I had a passion for my business. So if you're at that stage, like if you're younger, or you have a business you love, and you're like, I just love doing what I do. I want to put all my heart and soul in it, and I'm working, I'm making good money, then whatever you have there that's extra, I would say just invest it. And if you can, I mean, I got to the point where I was putting away 2,500 a month. And so the rule of thumb is to try to get to 10% of your income. So if you know from the past, years, like your taxes, what you made, what you grossed, or what you're making at your job, then try to go and calculate what 10%, of your income is, and see if you can do that per month. Like break it down, divide it by 12, and see if you can, is that something I can afford to do monthly? It also kind of pushes you to start thinking differently about your expenses. And that's something that I want to teach, in a different course, which would be about like budgeting and money mindset, and kind of getting yourself into a place where you start really being intentional, with your money and your expenses. There's tricks and ways of, getting yourself in that mindset so that you're not just, going out and spending money on whatever thing and then like it just sits there, right? So like becoming more intentional with your money. This is what happened for me. I had that thought of, I don't want to do this forever. I don't want to be like my parents and slave away. And even though I love my business, I want to have some freedom at some point. I want to be free of this whole thing, like this whole rat race thing. And so I realized, looking at these calculations and numbers, I started to realize like, I've got to put more away. I really have to, buckle down and put more away. And so it made me become more intentional about my spending. It made me want to get rid of debt and not have anything that I was signing up for that would require a loan or debts. It just puts you in a whole different state of mind when you start getting intentional, when you really start thinking about the life you want, the life you desire. And so then you can work backwards from there. Like if the reason I'm bringing this up is because if you look at this, like, I know truthfully where I'm at in my health, I know my energy level, I know my age, how much time really do I have before I'm like, screw this 9 to 5 thing or this business thing? I just want to be free of it. And for me, I knew by the time I was 40, I knew I was like realistically working this hard with my business, being 20 something, when I started really thinking about this. Maybe I was 25 by that time. I was like, I don't think I can do this at 50. Like, I know I can't do this at 60, the amount of work I was doing, but I was like, even in my 40s, this would be kind of challenging to work this much. So I realized like I have a short time span here to work with. And you can see on, those charts, time is everything. The longer you have, the better. Okay. So the way to play with this is if you have a shorter time span, then you need to invest more to get that number up. So for me, then I realized I need to start contributing more. And so we paid off cars. We stopped getting in and out of that car scene where like you're buying a new car every 2 to 5 years, started like really becoming intentional with spending. Even the type of house, it was like, when you start making good money, then you're like, I need a better house, and a better this and a move here and there. Which is that can be a goal for you, but those things, those big things are also very costly things, and have the monthly, cost to them that's taking away from your ability to invest that money. So we did the fancy nice house, and then I realized this isn't working. So we had to go, back downsize, and then all of a sudden these chunks of money start appearing when you become intentional. So I'll even show you. We'll start with the 30-year time frame, because this is what we got in 30 years, right? With the 250, it was 350, around 350,000. Now, if you bump it up to 2,500 over 30 years, then this number jumps quite a bit. 3.4 million is where it goes. So realistically, though, you're probably not going to be putting, unless you're doing really well with your business and you've got help now, and you're able to still put this amount of money away per month. But if you're like, we were a small family business working pretty hard and, had little help, probably not going to be doing that for 30 years. So that's where I want to show the shorter time span. So something like maybe let's do 15 years, at that amount. And then you can see you're almost to 1,817,000 in 15 years. Okay, at the 2,500. And I think even, what's interesting and what this may bring up for you, watching this video is like, where does your mind go with seeing that number? Because I remember, and usually when I talk to people who are getting started, $20 a month is hard for them. They're like, they look at me funny, like, I don't have that, I don't have that extra money. And I'm always like, really, 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 like, like, let's look at your budget. What are you spending your money on, per month? Is it like, and this is where there's a lot of, in the social media realm right now, people making, there's a lot of financial people saying, at first there was this idea of you shouldn't drink coffee out, and that became like a shaming thing. And now, there's financial people saying you can have your coffee and still invest, and you can, right? If that's part of your day and what you desire. But I'm saying, look at your budget and see, like, really truly see month by month, where am I spending this money? Where is it going? And like, do I have that extra really, to put away? Because if you have the goal of something like retiring early or being able to travel more, or, something like this where your money is making money, then that's where you want to start contributing more and finding those dollars. And there's many ways to do that. I'm going to have a little piece of the course talking about like how to raise your income, different ways you can do that too. So these are the three things. It's basically like having an app, having some kind of brokerage account that you can get started with, and then also having this calculator at your fingertips. And being able to benefit off of compound interest, which is that time frame. Let's see if I can get us back to, Yahoo Finance. Probably just click back. Let's see. But that's the benefit in being able to have this, long amount of time to invest in the market. So I hope this helps you see and have a little bit more confidence in getting started with investing. Maybe raises up some questions for you or things that are in your mind. And I want to offer that up to you. If you have any questions and you're watching this video, to please reach out to me and let me know what those things are. Because I know for me personally, and pretty much everyone that I get started in this with, they have that fear come up. Something comes up in them where they're like, I don't know if I can do this. And it really is almost like pulling a trigger in a way. And so it is triggering, also. And so that's where it's like, I would want you to feel like you have all your questions answered. If anything comes up for you in your mind, or if you have anything where it's like, I don't know if this is for me or not, and you have more questions, then please reach out to me. You can reach out to me through my email. It's bepassionateandprosper@yahoo.com. So you can reach out to me there. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram. My Instagram is Mandy J. Gatlin. So it's all one word, Mandy J. Gatlin, and you can message me there. So if you have any questions about this and you're just seeing this as a recording, please let me know. But otherwise, thank you for coming to this video and watching and being a part of it. And I'm going to open it up for questions now. So if anybody that's joined, so I see Nico, you're here. Hey, I'm going to unshare the screen unless you need this up if you have a question about it. But let me see. There's a way to here, stop share. There we go. There we are. Hey, Nico.
Hi, that was awesome.
Yeah.
It made me wish I had met you sooner, like I had known about this sooner, like years ago. Like
I know. This is what happens. I know.
yeah, because I've spent so much time like working like the energies from my childhood and how I was brought up around money and all that, and the fears and all the things and the struggle of my family. And so I'm sitting here going, oh my God, I never got an upgrade. Like I've been working all of this like old energy to just clear that to get to where I am now, but like it never got upgraded to what you're talking about. And I really wished.
I know. And I'm just scratching the surface. There's so much to share, which is like, I'm taking these videos, I'm going to put them into a course. But I'm going to offer more free time, like this, and have specific topics. So if that interests you, just let me know and I'll share the video, this with you, the Zoom, so that you can dive in, to it, because it's definitely, that's how it felt for me too, was like, I'm going from like a baby, like knowing about money, to all of a sudden, I remember when my dad showed me this and I saw the charts and I was like, my mind is blown right now. Like, yes, I'm absolutely doing this. I'm getting in this, and taking advantage of it. And so, yeah, we're just scratching the surface. But like, is there anything in particular, like with your money stuff with family, in terms of the upgrade that you're feeling watching this?
Well, it was interesting too, because like spiritually, so I literally, I don't know what you said. It was the coffee comment about how investors were saying, oh, for a cup of coffee, just give up your cup of coffee and spend that in here, right? And I know there was a chunk of years where different spiritual teachers were using that as a thing too. Oh, well, if you can afford a cup of coffee in the morning, then you can afford this. Give up your cup of coffee to pay for this.
Yeah. Yeah.
It,
The sh-
and I've actually had teachers say this around investing too. Oh, well, if you have money in an investment account, just dump it and pay for my course or pay for this thing. And
yeah.
um it really, and I was like, wow, okay, that has to get, like, well, now I'm witnessing it, and now
Worked
I'm getting
out.
to get this cleared, that it's like it's not an either or situation, um and that the
Absolutely.
investment just as important and have a value for later on, or
Yeah.
even pretty quickly, depending on how you do things. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate this whole conversation. um and
Nice.
I was trying to think about, like,
Yeah, what you're saying, what I struggled with, and I didn't share this early on in the video. There's again, so much to share, but like I
yeah,
had so much debt, back then. I think I had like 30,000 in credit card debt adding up. I didn't even know how to really use credit cards either, which was part of the problem. And then also student loan debt, on top of that, maybe 50,000 total, something like that. So it felt very wrong to be like, I'm just gonna like start putting money in an investment account, and save it. And so I think, and even when I'm hearing what you're saying, for me, it became a mindset shift of like, I can do both and hold the energy of like, I have debt and I know I have that debt and I'm working on that. And then raise myself into this energy of, but I'm worth also investing. My goals and my dreams are worth putting money into, as well. And what's interesting is when I made that shift, when I did that, when I started to put the money in, my this other side opened up more. It was like, now I want to learn more about my credit cards. Now I want to learn more about debt. I want to become more savvy with money. Like it was the upgrade, just like you said, like I had this like strange, because I was like, it is okay for me to invest in my dreams and goals, and do that for whatever amount felt comfortable. And I started with $20 a month. It
okay,
was very small, when I started. But that's why I tell people, please just start with something, even if it's 20 a month, because it causes that shift in you, where you're like, this is my goal now. I'm going to actually put my energy there and put my awareness there and let that happen for me. And then what happens is now your brain, this is kind of the mindset piece of all of this. Your brain now knows what it needs to do. So
okay,
now your brain starts searching for, what do I need to correct? What do I need to work out? What do I need to let go of? Like your brain starts actually helping you now, because your goal is, what your goal is now, you know?
okay,
So that's why
yeah,
I say, figure out that goal, figure out that number or that dream or whatever it is, like, know, what that is, so that your brain starts actually going, okay, well, to do that, I need to start investing, or like I need to look at like how to do this or how to do that. And it's true for anything. It's when you step into the energy of this, then these other things start to kind of, work, like get worked on. And
oh,
and,
cool,
and that's what started happening for me. Then I was like, I gotta sit down with my credit cards. you know, I gotta look at the interest rate. And what's funny is I knew what interest was, but on credit cards I didn't understand it.
yeah,
I it just was over my head, and there were so many little rules and details in there that they trick you with. And when I started looking, I was like, oh, this is just wrong. Like what they're doing to people is wrong. So I then started learning how to play the game, where it's like, I'm not gonna, we're not doing the minimum payment thing anymore. I'm gonna pay these off pay them in full every month, get the points, you know,
Right.
get that money from them. Now they're paying me back for all that, you know, interest they got from me. So that it's just little things that start that's just an example, you know,
Yeah.
of something that can shift, like with your money. But there's so many other things that can shift with your money. Like for you, maybe with your business, it could be, you know, charging more, you know, knowing now, oh, like this is the reason I need to be charging more because my goal is to make this at a certain time. And so to
Right.
get to that goal, you know, now your brain is like, oh, she's got a business and she can charge this much, you know, to help her get to that goal.
Yeah.
So,
I love that. Oh
mhm.
my God. You made this so easy because I've had a fear around it. And but it's felt like this little niggling thing that, like, it would be keep like a mosquito coming in by
Yeah.
you. Like, this would be good. This would be good. And I'm like, I don't have anything. So
Yeah.
thank you for making it so accessible.
Yeah.
Um, because I definitely like watching the waves. The other like side thing that I got from this was that the energy, like the way you talk about reading like the flow, the
Mhm.
waves of the investing. Um, because right now there's a lot of clients that I have that it's like we're on a downturn basically.
Mhm. Mhm.
And and it's super easy to get panicked in that.
Mhm.
And just your conversation about, wait, there's a scope out, there's a bigger picture here. And
Yes.
now you're just, and I was like, oh, I can treat it the same way,
Yes.
even in my own business and the different business owners I work with, that it's like, oh, okay, if they're freaking out, like, it's okay.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
just a moment, right? And
Yep.
so yeah, so for anybody that ends up watching this and they need that little connector, um, that it applies to even just your real life and your own business that you're working through.
It does.
Yeah.
It applies to everything, even like
Yeah.
hard times in your relationships or, you know, in your own personal life, a struggle you're going through or something. Like, yeah, we have ups and downs, you know, in our lives, and the market reflects that. You know, it's just a mirror. It's just a reflection, you know, really. I mean, I didn't show it on the charts, but I also show people COVID, you know, when COVID hit, and you can see that on the chart too. And it was a massive decline, a very quick, you know, chop in the market the very first year, and then it starts recovering, and it actually started, you know, taking off after that. So it's really interesting to look at like pandemics, you know, times of war, things like that, that are like almost like a more global or greater scale, you know, reflection of like what we're going through as humans, you know,
Yeah.
and how that's reflected in like the economy and, you know, the markets. But yeah, it applies to us on a personal level too. You know, the micro part of it, right, is like where our fears are and what we're going through as business owners, or something like that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, and I have a question in terms of like your balloon companies. So when the market took a dump and like the house builders and I forget what the other car
Car
dealership,
dealers. Yep.
and they decided to like shore up money and like stop putting into the balloon and helium, balloon and helium business, buying from you, like, did the apartments just come, like, did you end up realizing things were shifting to the apartments, or based on you just doing the investing, being an investor basically in the market, did that help you see that, or did apartments just start coming to you?
That's a
Like, how did
really good
that
question.
work? Yeah.
That's a really good question. Yeah, so part of it is two things I would say. One is that I was doing that as a business already, And so we had a broad based clientele. And so some of them started pulling, back, and others started calling, more, like, needing to, promote. That's what they were using the balloons for. It was like, we need to promote to get attention. So they were putting balloons out,
Yeah.
to get attention. So some of that was very quick. It was happening very fast
Right.
when it was happening. And so you get like all these calls for people shutting down, and all these calls for some people were starting to call, saying, oh, we're needing balloons, we're needing more. And so that definitely helped, having a broad-based clientele and being like, okay, I'm seeing, and having awareness helps too, right? Like noticing these
Yeah.
things is a big piece of it. It's kind of like looking at, again, the broad picture and saying, who is really like my client right now, and
Yeah.
speaking to them and helping them and serving them and being willing to pivot to them.
Yeah. Okay.
Because a lot of business owners, this is something else I see, when I work with a business owner, it's like, no, this is my client. I'm only helping this person, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that might work for like 5 years or 10 years or whatever. But like, what happens when, something like COVID hits and the things shut down and you don't have those
Right.
people anymore? They're all
Right.
gone. What do? You just going to shut down too, right? Or like, do you learn to pivot? Do you learn to like have that sense of awareness? And so the other thing I would say is when you're in the water learning to surf and you're seeing the waves,
Mhm.
that kind of gets built in when you're a business owner, and also when you're watching investing. It's like you start to feel the waves, you become one with them, and that's what happens with your clients. Like if you're like, I know how you are, probably with your clients, you care a lot. And so when you are talking to them, you're hearing things in them, like, are they shutting down? Are they in fear? That can give you that sense of like, okay, they're in fear. But you do, as a business owner, I had to stand back from that, and observe it, rather than like buy into everything's going to crap, it's all falling apart, we're gonna go out of business too,
Right.
like buying into their fear too. That is the whole point, I would say, like, is like, even with watching the market. And that was why I shared the story about my stepdad, because he is like sometimes that person I go to, like if I see the fear in the market, I go to him. Now during COVID, he got scared,
Yeah.
because he's older, and
Yeah.
they're retired. And so this is what happens too, is like your fears come up. This from doing inner work or whatever, right? Your fears come up around different things at different times in your life. So
Yeah.
so here they had built this huge nest egg, it's sitting there for them as they need it. And then they're in retirement and they're still letting their money grow, and they're
Right.
still active in the market. And then COVID hits. And for elderly people, COVID is very scary, you
Oh
know.
yeah.
I mean, they played that up in the
Yeah.
news a lot too. So, them listening to all of that and everything, and I would have these conversations with him where I'm like, because he would say, I think I'm going to pull half out. And I'm like,
Oh wow, you got to support him. That's so cool.
it totally,
That
yeah,
is so cool.
yeah. Yeah, because, I'm in that place where I'm like, I have time. I know it's going to be okay, but more than that, it's that fear. Is he buying into the fear? Am I buying into the fear and letting that, play, like dictate things? And we know, based on, I mean, this is why I love looking at that chart. I go back to the chart because it's like, it goes up. It goes up over time, companies want to keep doing better. That's the whole point.
What
To
about?
like, yeah, they're not in business to do worse, for the market to go
Right.
down. So, this is why I believe in it as like an investment vehicle, because it's like these companies want to do better and better and better over time. That's their end game. Their goal is to continue to grow,
Yeah.
and and so the market's going to show that, it's going to show that. So it makes it, if you just go back to that, like something where you're looking at a chart, and for me, I had to step away from news, um, CNBC
Mm.
News.
Okay.
They're always talking about the market, and like, and you even Yahoo Finance has a news section, and you can scroll through and you can see in the titles, that it's fear-based, and they're talking about the next whatever dip is going to come or something like that. Um, and then I even have friends that I talk to that if it's not news, then they're listening to an astrologer telling
Right.
them, you know, they're looking at astrology and saying the market's going to dip next year because of this sign going into that sign. And I'm like, please stop. So yeah, and then I feel bad for them because they're giving over their power in a way, to
Yeah.
astrologer or the news, or giving into that fear, instead of just stay focused on what you want, what your plan is. And if you are consistent and you know your goal, it'll be fine. It will grow and you'll be fine. And I don't think it's about like even reaching the end goal. It's like if you're working on this as a person, because I would say I was not perfect. I made mistakes through it. And that's why I have maybe this feeling calling now to share with people about it, because I made mistakes. I there were times where I handed my power over to like a financial advisor and
Uh-huh.
let them invest that money I
Okay.
made. And so I started with a brokerage account. I started the
Yeah.
right way. And then at times I was like, maybe an advisor could do better, you know?
Right.
And so
Right.
I handed over like the entire thing to this person. And then,
Wow.
yeah, and then rode through that. And it was like a new advisor every year, which was a sign. It's like a red flag,
Yeah.
with this company. It's a new advisor every year pretty much because they're coming and going. And then I didn't realize how much the fees were and what they
Uh,
were getting off of my money
right.
just sitting, and then putting it in some things, and then them saying, "Oh, I'm doing this and that with your money, like I'm an advisor," and they're making thousands of dollars
Yeah.
off of your money.
Yeah.
And so I realized, and I didn't even show that, but like when you go into, if you look at an S&P 500 index fund, for example, you can see the expense ratio, the fee, and it's usually like 0.04%, something like that, really low. So that's
Wow.
the other benefit to getting into a fund, is that all they're doing is taking that index fund and mimicking the 500, the S&P 500. It's literally computer doing the work. So they don't charge high fees for that. They're basically taking that, those 500, the S&P 500 market, turning it into a fund at a brokerage account and giving it to you as like, you can invest in this too. And we will only charge 0.0 whatever percent, because we're a brokerage company and we do need to make money, but it's a computer doing the work as opposed to an advisor. So again, this was my lesson, the thing I didn't know, at the time. I didn't realize fees were like a little, it's all the sneaky things
Yeah.
that you find out about. Just like with credit cards, the things I didn't know,
Right.
until I dug in on the details. And so I think that's also a thing, a hang up for people is a lot of people get scared of like, I won't understand it. Or I don't want to dig in,
Yeah.
on the details, or it's too much math or something
Yeah.
like I hear some stuff about that from people, but honestly, I'm like, well, just ask me the question.
Right.
Like, and you may not know what to ask, which is why I'm doing the course, because it's like there are all these little sneaky details. There's all these little things, that I had to find out the hard way. Um, Especially like the fees. Advisors also do not have your best interest at heart.
Right.
They want to sell you things, annuities, insurance, all these other additional things that you get convinced to do, that have nothing to do with your goal.
Wow. So I want to unpack, I just want to make sure I understand what you just said in terms of the advisors and S&P 500 and all of that. So if you have like a brokerage account like Fidelity, and then you're saying, let's say they create an S&P 500
Index fund.
that you can invest in, a fund
Yes,
that you can. So like, is it okay to do that? Like, is that good for you to do because you're making the activity, or are you getting charged extra fees for doing that because they're managing?
that's good. Good question too. So yeah, to
I'm kind
clarify,
of
the Fidelity is a brokerage company, and they allow you to set up an investment account at their company. Once you have that investment account, this is all stuff I'm, step by step stuff I teach, but like once you have that investment account, you can pick a fund that you want to be in. The S&P 500 index fund is just one of them.
right.
They have many. They have tech funds, they have healthcare funds, defense funds, they have all kinds of things.
Okay.
I like the S&P 500 because it's just broad, best companies, performing well. So they have Fidelity will have an S&P 500 index fund specifically at Fidelity that you can then say start with and put $1,000 into. Okay. And that will be in your account then at their brokerage company.
Okay.
Now, a financial advisor is something like Edward Jones.
Okay.
You walk into an Edward Jones, he's going to sit down with you. It's going to be a guy in a suit, driving a nice car. And he's going to be like, let's talk about some things. How much money do you have now? How much can you give me? He might sound good at the beginning. Like he might be like, oh yeah, you have that goal. Okay. Yeah. I can help you get there. Like you need to buy this, you need to get that. Let's get you invested in this fund and this stock. And, so he'll take your money from you, put it in some things, say he's advising you and helping you, and then he gets money. Like he starts getting cuts from all of that.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So the brokerage account is good. Financial advisor, in my opinion, bad. Yeah. And they show up in different, like, we even tried one through American Express. They had like a financial something group. I forget what they called themselves, so you have to be careful. And yeah, they gave me this questionnaire to fill out, basically disclosing everything I have, what I have available to invest, what I've got, what I make every year, like all this huge amount of information. It was like a book that I gave them, and sat down with them thinking like they're going to be able to help me grow my money in more creative ways, because that
Right.
also becomes a thing you get challenged by as a business owner, is like your level, gets here, and then you step up to here, and then you're like, what do I do now? Like as you're
Right.
growing. Yeah. And so we found this American Express group, I forget, but then did all this homework, did all the filling out paperwork, gave it to them, sat down with the guy, and he was like, well, for $5,000, I can get you started. And I was like, no, this is just the same. This is just the same thing. It's the
Yeah.
same. So I kept it so after I dealt with Edward Jones for, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 years, I went through 2 or 3 guys at
Mhm.
Edward Jones, and then I pulled my money because I was so frustrated. It really was not even performing that well with them.
Wow.
You know, I
Yeah.
I went to them thinking they know more than me,
Right.
and they don't.
Right.
They're just salesmen.
Right.
So I put it back in Vanguard, went back to Vanguard, and reopened my brokerage account there, set it all up again, automated it all there, had the money going in again, and it was fine. It was growing again, just fine.
Wow.
Yeah, because people don't realize the fees cut in to your earnings. They're taking, you earn so much during the year, like that interest rate, say, is 10% that you earn. And then when you calculate the fees that they're charging, it may be
Yeah.
like 8% of what you're making.
Yeah.
So what are you actually making? 2%.
2%. Yeah. Whereas if you could just learn a little bit like what you're teaching, then you're getting the full
You're
you
getting
benefit
10%
instead of, yeah.
instead of 2,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So I mean, you're making someone else rich, and thinking that they're helping you.
Yeah.
And it really isn't the case. It really is not
Yeah.
the case. And I know I'm not the only one. That it's fun because I have friended a lot of like financial people, educators, online, and they've been through the same things, and they're sharing the same things. And I see it, and I'm like, I've been there too, like I did that too. And so if it's someone, getting into it, I don't want you to make that mistake. I want you to know, what you're getting into. If you make that decision to go with an advisor, know that there's fees, and that's fine if you want to be hands off,
Right.
but it's actually not hard to learn. Like
Okay, cool.
the course I'm creating, I'm keeping it super simple, step by step, and it's literally, you could probably get through the videos in like a weekend.
Okay.
And then you could probably set up the account in, like, I've had people do it the day I talk to them.
Okay.
They set up the account, and then automating and all that stuff is just little details that you find in their online interface. How to set it up automatically to withdraw from, like, say, your savings to go into their your account at their brokerage once a month, so you don't even have to, like, it's like a payment you're making,
Right.
to someone, and so it's out of you don't have to worry, like, do I need to make that payment or send off the money again?
Right.
Yeah.
It's just okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm
So
planning to keep it super simple.
love it.
But yeah, so that, and if you're interested, let me know. I'll send you links to when I get it all completed. But yeah, you're also welcome. I'm planning on having more of these, videos, to share more. And I would say too, if this is the beginning for you, just keep doing more of this, educate yourself, learn about all the little nuances in there, get to know your beach,
Exactly.
Where you're surfing.
I was supposed to like put the back.
It was. That's always what I share with people is like, if you're surfing, you know, you gotta know the waves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I loved it. Thank you so much. This was super helpful.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining. It was fun having you.
Thank you.
I hope you're doing well. I'm gonna hit stop.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I don't want to end it. Hang on.